8:54 on Salam Media News and Views. And of course, we are all about humanitarian journalism. Welcome back on this day, Monday, the 28th of April, which is in fact Freedom Day. However, not everybody in South Africa is celebrating Freedom Day as we refer to it. The president of the South African Shack Dwellers Movement, Abahlali baseMjondolo, Sibusiso Innocent Zikode, says that in Soweto in particular, they are marking UnFreedom Day. And let's understand why they are calling this UnFreedom Day. What are their concerns and how do they believe their concerns, deep-rooted as they may be, should be addressed? Good morning to you, Sibusiso. Welcome to the program.
A very good morning to you and to your listeners, and thank you for having us.
Okay, so your organization, which is Abahlali baseMjondolo, is marking today as UnFreedom Day, particularly in Soweto. Talk to us about this change in the mood regarding your followers and possibly a lot of other people in South Africa.
Yes, it is very unfortunate that 31 years down to our constitutional democracy, millions of South Africans, particularly the shack dwellers, those who are living in rural villages, those who are living in farms, continue to suffer the injustices, the economic injustices of this country. People are living in the informal settlements, which are not meant for human habitation. The United Nations suggests that in one of its reports that these areas are life-threatening. So our communities continue to live in deep poverty, suffer from inequalities and high rate of unemployment. And most importantly, the question of land remains unresolved in South Africa. It is very humiliating, but also it's a shame that we are told that statistics says that 87% of our land remains in white minority farmers, while only 13% of the land is in the hands of the majority of this country. So this is an insult to those who came before us. So yesterday, we were in Soweto to remind our government, to remind our country, its people and the world that it is not yet Uhuru. There is no freedom for the poor. It's not only this mourning was taking place in Soweto, but also in Mpumalanga province near Volkrust. There was a very similar big event, which both events were continuing parallel. It's the voice from the South Africans. As you would know that on Friday, there was also an UnFreedom Day march, which brought thousands of people in Durban to mourn UnFreedom Day in a form of march, and the memorandum was delivered to the Minister of Cooperative Government and Traditional Affairs. So we are saying to South Africa, to our government and to the world, injustice continue to terrorize our communities. It will be an insult. We will be lying to ourselves. We will be lying to the nation when we say we are free, when we are not free. So this is the message that we want to get across, that we cannot and we have no reason to celebrate Freedom Day, not only what we are facing in South Africa, but wars such as those that continue to terrorize the people of Gaza in Palestine. Nelson Mandela, for instance, has always made it clear that there cannot be freedom, complete freedom, without the freedom of the Palestinian people. And this is the call that we want to make today.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. But let's just look at the argument from the point of government. They argue that the reason they're unable to supply decent housing for the majority of people living in shacks is a lot of those people are undocumented migrants. Would you agree with that? And even if they are undocumented migrants, it's a question of human dignity and human rights, is it not?
Well, absolutely, you are correct. A human being will always be a human being whenever they find themselves, and that would be a serious problem for government not to take that seriously. However, there is a very clear evidence that the majority, at least 90% of the people who are living in the informal settlements are South Africans. And of course, we know that there has been urbanization given the history of our past. There has been a number of migration and urbanization from rural areas into our urban centers. And of course, our cities have been unable to accommodate the influx of people coming into our cities. And we know people do not come to the city to build shacks. It is not nice to live in the shacks. People must get that clear. Nobody enjoy to live in the shacks. Nobody wants to raise their children in the informal settlements. So people go to find these places they call themselves home so that they can be closer to the active economic areas, and then they are forced, compelled to find themselves in the shanty towns.
Absolutely. So I am aware, I think you and I had this discussion last year on Freedom Day, or Unfreedom Day, as you prefer to refer to it. We had this conversation over the past few years. What has changed? Have you petitioned government at all? Are you engaging with government? You made a comment at the beginning of the interview, and you indicated that a large percentage of unused land is in the hands of white minority capitalists in the country. How do you suppose? But let's also bear in mind that the land that you're referring to is really outside of the urban areas. So you indicate that local migration is due to the fact that people are looking to better their current situations from rural areas, for example. Um, so if we do, however government decides to reclaim the land, be it without compensation, or willing buyer, willing seller, etc., etc., do you believe that would in fact address the situation? Because people want to be they want to be close to the cities or live within the CBD areas of large cities all around the country, simply because they want to be economically active. So would it actually suit their purposes to get land and to be housed outside of cities? There's going to Obviously there's going to be other challenges when you have a situation like that cropping up.
Absolutely, which is why the question of housing and human settlement should not be isolated and be left with one Department of Human Settlements. It is now called the Department of Sustainable Human Settlements, just because housing people is a business of every government sector, of everyone, including business. So what we are saying as Abahlali, of course, come to cities because they want to be closer to active economic areas. However, we know that we have also small towns in our rural villages. So we are calling for what is called decentralization. In other words, we must be able to identify factors that are pushing people into urban centers, into big cities. What is it that attracts people into big cities? Why can they not be decentralized? So we are calling for the upgrading and the investment in small cities so that people would have no reason to migrate into big cities, because cities are unable to not only to accommodate people, but the question of land also is a challenge in big cities. Hence, we are saying government must invest together with businesses and start upgrading our small towns so that people would rather work from within their rural villages because they are within the reach. So if ever there was building of factories and other opportunities in rural areas, people would have no reason not to remain there. So that's where land is. It is true that land is not much in urban centers, it is back in rural areas. So why don't we then upgrade and invest in those rural areas put job opportunities, factories, and so on, attract investment so that we can boost rural areas so that they can be places for economic growth and development, which will then discourage people from migrating into cities and start building shacks because the cities are no longer friendly in welcoming poor people.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. However, that also poses additional challenges because once you start developing those little towns, which is in fact the answer to the current or part of the answer to the current problem we faced in South Africa. And I think that when large corporates and factories and mines and farmers, etc., set up close to those small towns, I think part of the deal should also be, because we know that big business in South Africa are taxed very marginally. It's the small, the small fries like you and I, that is carrying the tax burden. But then they should provide healthcare, education facilities, and decent housing, because they're making millions and millions upon millions off the back of the poorest of the poor. I have no doubt in my mind that you've given this type of a scenario much thought, and you've already engaged with government on it. What sort of response do you get from government when you go to them with these type of proposals?
Well, most unfortunately, they have not recognized human beings and as people that can think, that can reasonably contribute to the solution of to the challenges that are facing this country. For a very long time, Abahlali has been trying to engage the government, but of course, when you are poor in this country, you would not be treated with respect and you would not be listened to. This is the challenge that we are facing, that government authorities do not have time for impoverished communities. Not to mention service delivery and other, material needs of people. They do not even have time. And that's very worrying. That's very concerning. That's very frustrating. This is what we're telling the Minister of Culture on Friday, to say, what are you, government, busy with every day if you are not busy with the people, with these people who are actually marching? Masses of people have no leaders, nobody to engage them, nobody to answer to their questions, nobody to lead in possible solutions, because people have the solutions to their problems. Now, if these government officials cannot even have ears to listen to what communities can suggest to them, then we have a serious problem in our country.
So, Sibusiso, let me leave you with this last question. Going forward, and I do know that Abahlali has been fighting this fight for a very, very long time. It seems as if you haven't made a breakthrough as yet with local and national government, because your issues talks to local, provincial, and national government. So you are faced with a huge challenge. What's the next step going forward for someone to take notice of the plight of shack dwellers, and the fact that housing, education, health facilities have reached a critical point in cities? And I think urgent action needs to be taken to start developing small towns and smaller cities so that the influx is stopped from the big cities.
Moving forward, obviously, Abahlali understand, recognize, and acknowledge the power of ordinary women and men in our communities, in our townships, in our shack settlements, in our rural villages, in our flats, and suburbs. So we believe in the power of the people. So moving forward, Abahlali still believe that it is only the power of the people that can bring about the social change that we need. Abahlali believes that it is the day-to-day thinking of ordinary men and women in our communities that have greatest love for this country and that have solutions for this country. As a result of that, Abahlali would intensify its cause of organizing. We continue to build the power of the impoverished from below by organizing ourselves, but by also making sure that we build a sense of humanity. And when we do so, because we want to see a fair world, a world where equality, justice, respect, and dignity becomes the order of the day, we have to be people first. We have to be human first. Part of the task that confronts us as Abahlali is to humanize the world. And this is what we are confronted with. Before we can even actually speak about the material needs, the conditions in which we live, we must be people, we must be human beings. So those are the values and the principles that we continue to instill in our communities. So communities are built, and this is what we are called to do. Let's build our communities, and when we build our communities, when they are united, speaking in one voice, then that's where solution and intelligence that would have a long-lasting solution would come about.
Sibusiso, I do hope and pray that when you and I have a discussion again in a year's time, next year, this time, that you won't be marking Unfreedom Day, but Freedom Day, and that the condition of your organization and all peoples, the poorest of the poor, the marginalized, will have changed, or the start of the change will be evident to not only the South African shack dwellers movement, but all across South Africa. So keep up the good work, and work hard to see some meaningful change. Thank you indeed for talking with us this morning, Sibusiso Innocent Zikode, president of the South African shack dwellers movement, also known as Abahlali baseMjondolo. Go well, God bless, and thank you for being with us on the show this morning. It is 11 after 9 o'clock, and a reminder that this hour of news and views is brought to you by Africa Muslims Agency. And also a reminder that we'll be taking a listen to our Fired Up series with Hafiz Imran Chunara, personal excellence mentor and CEO of Africa Muslims Agency. So let's get to that in a minute or two.